Hello and welcome to Question Time. I'm Benga Ashuru. The agency responsible for the maintenance and rehabilitation of all federal roads is the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, FERMA. But in delivering this mandate, according to the agency, FERMA's operations seem to be hampered by inadequate funding. As a result, FERMA is seeking for an amendment of its funding system from the envelope budgeting system to an adoption of 1% of the consolidated revenue. With a seeming conflict between the Federal Highway Act, which the supervising ministry is in favor of, and the FERMA Act, how can the huge infrastructural gap be bridged in a fragile economy that yearns for a desperate intervention? Join us in this discussion with the Managing Director of the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, Engineer Nuruddin Rafin Dadi.
On the contrary, I think that a lot has been done. We started this 12-week program towards the end of December because that's when we got the funding actually released. And we have tracked this. Actually, what happened was we identified bad spots along the Federal Highway network, a certain number in each state of the Federation. Since we started, we have been tracking it, both directly from the headquarters on our platforms in the media, and subsequently through deployment of senior teams to go out and actually physically monitor what has been happening. And I can tell you as I speak now that that program has achieved over 90% completion from the number of the roads that we identified and we submitted as a program.
90% completion. So what areas constitute the 10% completion?
What areas we are still on site, we are still moving. This intervention program was not on reconstruction or rehabilitation of long stretches of the roads. What we did was to identify disaster prevention. That's the function. The function basically is to prevent the Federal Highway network from collapsing. And therefore, our monitoring first and foremost priority is to find those spots where the failure is about to occur.
Really not looking at the long stretch of the road, because one would have expected a kind of holistic measure.
That is important. That's even more important. That's why the budget of Federal Ministry of Works is about 10 times the budget of FERMA. You see why maintenance is important? Maintenance is important because it actually prevents heavy investments on roads as you push. You see, the situation we have is that the Ministry of Works puts in its best to keep reconstructing and rehabilitating roads. But some of these roads are getting some damages even before they finish the stretches. But when there's an agency like FERMA that takes care of the repair and maintenance issues, then the Federal Ministry of Works can concentrate on the major rehabilitation work. Well,
you've not been able to meet the 12-week deadline for the intervention of the federal highways given by the president.
We have.
No, you said you still have 10%.
From the end of December to date is just about 12 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So we have.
So you haven't, because it's just, you said you still have 10% of the roads.
Why I said 10% is I didn't want to declare that we have completed it.
So when is that going to be completed?
At the end of this month.
So you're promising Nigerians that on the federal highways there wouldn't be any bad spots?
No, I'm not promising that. I'm promising that those spots that we identified, and which the president specifically said identify and repair problems on 44 identified federal highways, those ones, those mandates, we've gotten almost to the end of it. If you talk of the entire 36,000 kilometers of federal highways, in which I would guess most of these kilometers would require in need of repairs, then that's a much larger work. So the problem with the roads is that there have been so much damage. That's what I found out when I resumed here. There has been so much damage on the roads that it will take a fairly long time to get to repair all of them.
There is a problem about repairs now. When there is a severe repair, would you not call for a total reconstruction of the road rather than repairing it? How durable would this be?
Some of the roads are in need of total reconstruction, and we are not on this. Some of the roads are actually presently under reconstruction by the Federal Ministry of Works. So there is a subsisting contract on them. We are not on this. All other roads that are not under a subsisting contract and they are in need of repairs, we monitor and prioritize. And that's what we do all the time. It will be a long time for us to have a pothole-free federal highway network all over the country. But the important thing, which is now being visible, is that we are starting. And our plan is that we will not stop, because after the 12 weeks program, we had a 9-month program which is submitted to the ministry, and so on and so forth.
You talked about so much money being budgeted for FERMA, and we still hear of abandoned projects or controversy between the states and the federal government on repairs of roads. So could you bring us into light into why or what is responsible for this?
Well, unfortunately, there is not so much money budgeted for FERMA. When I resumed as the CEO of FERMA in October, less than 3.5% of the budgeted amount for FERMA had been actually released. And the budgeted amount itself was not what you would consider sufficient. And it was towards the end of the year that we were able to get something significant, still not up to half.
But if the president is giving a directive of a 12-week massive intervention program, that suggests that the money has been budgeted for. Otherwise, it makes no sense to have that kind of radical intervention.
True, there was some release of money in the month of December.
So how much has been spent so far?
Okay, I will tell you there are two windows of the budget. There is the recurrent, which is a monthly release, which you use to
no, we're talking about the capital budget.
Capital and the capital.
For the repairs.
For the capital is not for repairs. We use the recurrent for the repairs.
Okay.
Okay, so when I resumed, only 5 months out of the 10 months of the year at that time had been released. But sometime in December, 2 months more of the recurrent was released. And I can tell you most of what we've done from then until now has been mostly from that 2 months release of recurrent.
There seems to be so much foot dragging in our budgetary system. And when it concerns an infrastructural intensive agency like yours, what would you like to see in terms of having an effective budget system that will meet up to the demands of FERMA?
Well, I understand part of the constraint in budgeting is that the money was simply not there. There was simply not more money. But what you are saying draws us into a larger question of how do we get sustainable funding.
Yeah, that also takes us to National Assembly calling for 1% of the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Right. There's been so much, this is generating lots of controversy. The Ministry of Works is saying that is not necessary. The National Assembly is saying that the envelope budgeting system would not be sufficient for FERMA. So you are the man on the hot seat. Could you tell us what is the way to go?
Well, my view is that the envelope system does not address the peculiarities of the needs of road repair. Reason is that even if the envelope system gives you sufficient appropriation, it is hardly ever released substantially. Well, road works and road repairs is one of those things that you need to keep doing every day, regardless of the season, regardless of available budgetary releases. And the needs for road repairs continues and increases as long as you have additional vehicles on the roads. And there is no day that the vehicles and the traffic will not ply the roads. So my view is that there has to be some kind of sustainable funding that makes the roads repair sector fairly independent of budgetary releases. And there have been a number of ideas suggested. One of them is the 1% release that was suggested by the National Assembly of the Consolidated Revenue Fund. But then there was an earlier proposal which is actually in the Act of FERMA, which presently is an act that has been there since 2007. And that act suggests provides that 5% of the pricing template of fuel in Nigeria should be dedicated for roads maintenance. That issue has not been implemented to date. And if it were, then that will go a long way to strengthen not only the amount, but the reliability and the predictability of funding of the road sector. Then we'll be able to do a program throughout the year that precisely addresses all the problems wherever we know where we are. Instead of just waiting for budgetary releases when they come and then trying to do something at the time.